Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about Insta360 Ace Pro 2. So let's dive deep into it. Now, basically, Ace Pro 2 is just a revision of Pro 1, and I'm genuinely getting fed up by the fact that every camera company is like, especially action camera, one launch per year. I'm like, dude, not enough is changing. So this puppy was announced in October 2024, $400. Now, be mindful, when I'm recording this video, there's not that many sellers for this puppy in India. And one I did manage to find was charging 50,000 rupees. That's very high, and I'm reasonably sure by the time the stock situation improves, it will drop down because generally camera companies price according to each other. So I've seen the price of other options of similar range, let's say GoPro 13 and all that. So likelihood of this price going down is very high. So if you are in India and planning to buy it, I would spend a bit of time here. A bit of patience would be wise. Now, the biggest point of this action camera is like it's a big sensor. However, that's not that amazing as it used to be, because be mindful, there is action. Basically DJI Osmo that also has big sensor. The only camera at this point in time does not have big sensor, it's a GoPro. So it has a big sensor, and it supports 8K, which again is previous variant did support 8K, but only to 24 frame per second. This time this puppy goes to 8K 30 FPS. How important that is, that's up to you. Although the biggest USP is that it has a flip-up screen, because you have to understand screens have become cheap enough where it's better for a company to just put a second screen here. And it started with a simple LCD. Nowadays you are getting full AMOLED out of it, so it's not that necessary. However, when you put a second screen here, which is just a clone of what is on the back end, it does come with a penalty because it's a smaller thing and you want to want that puppy to be touchscreen. The user interface and the whole interface seems far more cramped. So the idea is, what if you had the main screen flipping up, and that will be far bigger. So they did that part. And is that important to you? Again, for many people who are doing things where it's critical for framing, they would be like, yeah, it's important, because again, having 1 inch versus 2 whole inch, yeah, that's a difference. Again, it is important to you or not, that's up to your personal system. And the biggest change from last year is that it has 5 nanometer AI chip, same as last year, but it also has an enhancer chip, which is Pro Imaging chip. So it's almost like how Sony had a Bionic X processor, dual Bionic X, and then they added AI chip to it to improve autofocus. Same thing is here. It's just a co-processor, so to say. So this is Ace Pro 2, very new. Now, what's the feature? Well, the biggest feature where I am like, okay, this is genuinely different than other camera is just that flip up screen. And penalty of that is because they still have small screen, it's very small. So the front screen is very small, non-touch screen, and you only get limited display. So I do not know what's the benefit, because again, I get that from engineering point of view. If they're like, hey, what if we put a proper dual screen, then it's like, why pay for the hinge? And if they do not pay for the hinge, and people are like, you know what, it looks too outdated having a blank space in the front. So it's a very weird system. However, the new SoC, this puppy, basically Pro Imaging chip, the whole point of that is it should allow to enhance the quality, because nowadays we have crossed the threshold of how good a sensor can be. There is not that much progress left. However, the AI, because again, AI is getting the full fat pipe from the sensor. If your AI is good, you can actually get very useful result out of it. Not accurate, useful. Useful meaning what you want to see. Let that be very clear. If there's a low light out, you want your camera to act like a night vision, which is not scientific, but you want it to. And AI can do that because it's getting the full data pipeline and it's painting what you need to see, so to say. So having a high-end AI chip, that's desirable, especially for small sensor. So, and because there is a lot of co-processing happening in this, the specs got a bump. It can do 4K 120 FPS, again very normal. It can do 4K 60 FPS with HDR, that is very abnormal, because majority of the cameras can do 4K 30 with HDR. The moment you basically go to 60 FPS, the HDR disables. Here it does not happen there, so that's a very big thing. Plus 8K 30 FPS, which is not HDR. So that's there. It has photo support for 50 megapixel. Now the odd part is it does have RAW, that is a good thing. It has DNG RAW, it does have JPEG, but it is lacking HIF files. HIF files are the modern replacement for JPEG. It's high efficiency codecs, and it goes from 8-bit to 10-bit, and it has much more latitude even with a smaller file size. So not having that in such a latest thing is a weird, but Again, I think they have prioritized it, that it was not high priority. And it does have PD fast charging, which again only makes GoPro the odd one out where they do not have this. It can do 80% in 18 minutes. Now I feel like, why not 100? Let that be very clear. Companies cannot do this because lithium ion chemistry, the nickel, manganese, cobalt, these sort of simple chemistries, they have a lot of capacity, a lot of oomph, but the penalty is their charging is 1C, meaning 0 to 100% can only be done in 1 hour. 1C is 1 hour. 2C is 30 minutes, 3C is 15 minutes. So it goes like that. So 1C, you cannot exceed that. So 0 to 80, the voltage level is very low, so you can charge it as quickly as possible. In this case, 18 minutes. But if you are like, okay, so 18 to 100%, how long? 1 hour. So you cannot exceed that 1 hour. Basically, without sacrificing lifespan of the battery, you cannot do that, or changing the chemistry. Then why don't they change the chemistry? Capacity will go down. If they use lithium titanate, they can charge it in 15 minutes, 0 to 100%. Yeah, just capacity would be less. So 0 to 80% is actually useful. Do not freak out on the companies. This is the penalty of the chemistry. That's why all companies have it. So PD fast charging, that means almost everything will work with this puppy, especially in 2025, because this is the last year of basically the buffer period that was granted by European Union to all mobile manufacturers. By 2025, every puppy has to support PD. So this will work. And it has a square video format, which again, GoPro was, if I'm not mistaken, the first that kind of popularized this. Now almost everyone has that. And this is from their website, and it is very clever. I directly thought I will download the video file. Turns out the video file was full square file, and you are getting this aspect ratio done on the website. I'm like, that's a very clever. That's clever, because all this thing you can click and it will directly do that. I was like, that was clever. Whoever designed the website was clever way of showing what's the benefit of that. And does that make sense? Again, for people who are like influencer kind of people, they may send their video file, square video file, to basically 3 editors. One is like working on square format, one working on 16:9, one working on 9:16. So again, that is a desirable feature. So feature wise, it's good. The main thing is this allows you to flex your wing a bit more. You get 8K 30, you get basically 4K 60 HDR, and other than that, it's not that wildly different from someone else. What about the low light? Now let that be very clear. This is the place where you can actually tell the difference with your eyes closed, half eyes closed. What's the difference between GoPro and Osmo and this? Because again, sensor is huge compared to DJI, and again, even compared to mobile phone, it's huge. Now be mindful, if the sensor is this huge and it's reaching a point of like, mirrorless cameras like Nikon's 1-inch sensor or Sony RX100, why the heck the output does not look that good? It has lens, it has big lens, it has f2.0. Why the heck it does not look that whoa? Even though sensors are huge, it's getting 1 by 1/3 inch. It's like, it's huge. It's going 8K. It's like, why the heck it does not look like whoa? Well, the problem is on the geometry, aka of the lens philosophy, aka hyperfocal, meaning whenever your smartphone or your camera does anything, it focuses on something, it focuses on that, the end, go home. That focus point is the sharpest possible. When you are focusing close by, there is the minimum closest distance, something in between, or infinity focus. That's it. However, because these things require autofocus, companies switch to what we call hyperfocal, meaning there is a sweet spot. If your aperture is low enough, which again, small sensor compared to a full frame, it's low enough where they can set it such a way that everything from near focus point to infinity will be in focus, but it would be what we classify as acceptable sharpness. It will not be as sharp as possible compared to that lens, but it will be acceptable. So that's why inherently the lens itself is the limiting element now in all those GoPros and action cams, because of the hyperfocal design. If they had basically autofocus, again, assuming it's a reliable autofocus, they will get much higher sharpness, much higher whoa. So they cannot do that. That's a penalty of the design. It cannot be bypassed. And your phone can beat it. That's the reason. You're like, hey, my iPhone does not have that big of a sensor. Samsung S23 Ultra or S24 Ultra does not have that big of a sensor, but they always look a bit more sharp, bit more poignant. Oh, how? Again, autofocus itself. So there is a serious penalty of going to hyperfocal compared to a dedicated autofocus system. So that's what they are doing. However, why the heck companies do this? If they know for a fact that hyperfocal, while it is useful, it does compromise sharpness. Well, you have to understand, autofocus is complex. For example, if you look at this scene from our Indiana Jones movie, it's like Indiana Jones is here, the kid is here, and the Indian woman is here, and this whole village is there. Almost all three things are in focus. That's very difficult to do. Heck, many times if you do not know about this technique in lens, you might be just like, hey, what if I just do exposure? Be mindful this was done in negative, so they had to do in optical, or what we call special effect. So that's how you do it, hyperfocal. I have linked a dedicated video about that down below if you want to experience that. And the reason why we are stuck with that is autofocus is complex in the algorithm part. For example, my basically Logitech webcam has autofocus. It freaks out while I am sitting in the chair. I'm doing live stream, everything is fine, and it's just like, oh, what happened? What happened? It's like, dude, nothing happened. Calm down. And then I have to tap it. It's like, oh, okay, I got it. That happens. Autofocus is very difficult. Why the heck Panasonic is not as popular as it could have been? Autofocus. It took them way too long to realize their mistakes, and they should have fixed it when they jumped from a micro four third to full frame. If they had jumped at that point, they would have like really captured the market. But they are like, but what if we remain Japanese ego? It's like, no. Now they have face detect, and you can still see even with a face detect, they still are not that reliable compared to, let's say, Canon and Sony, which have been perfecting their technology long ago. So autofocus, even if you have the hardware, it's very complex and it's very prone to miss, because there is a one tiny issue. If you have autofocus that gives you the absolute sharpness, what does it focus on? That's based on the computer's judgment. That may malfunction. That's why people choose hyperfocal rather than autofocus. Although back and forth switching is possible, geometry wise, it's just that who would trust the autofocus? And you're like, this camera is awesome when autofocus works. When it does not work, it goes back to that system. It will go back to that breathing era of contrast detect. So that's why. And another aspect is, even if you have the software, AI and all that to do that, the rugged autofocus mechanism, the physical lens movement while the thing is supposed to be shock proof, yeah, that would be very expensive. So that's why I do not expect the quality, even though they have huge sensor, even though the sensor quality is huge, the AI is huge, the lens is limiting factor around because of the hyperfocal distancing system they have to use. So, and again, hyperfocal can be achieved by almost any mirrorless, any DSLR, any lens that gives you manual control, you should be able to do hyperfocal. Please watch the video linked down below for more details. So that's why do not expect the like, oh, I have this sensor, it will be like a really good photo. Yeah, but your smartphone will generally beat it, even with a smaller sensor, because again, it can focus it. The optics is the first weakness. So what are the alternatives for this action camera? Well, GoPro does not have much left, and at this point in time, you should buy GoPro if you like the look and feel, because we are talking about entertainment. We are talking about things that are for fun. It's not like scientifically accurate. So it's those sort of things. If you're like, hey, I enjoy the GoPro look, I like the skin tone rendition and all that, go YOLO, have fun with GoPro. But be mindful, the stocks are showing that and again, there was rumors 1 week ago that GoPro might be going poof, because at peak when GoPro was like printing money, they were at $86 per share. The currently, when I'm making this video, it's $1.6. It's bad. Like, it is bad. Like, it's not something that who cares? No, it is bad. Like, it is bad. And again, I'm reasonably sure that's why, because again, the stock value has been going down constantly. I think that's why they are so desperate for every time changing the new battery, every time changing the lens system, so you have to buy new lens. Basically, they are trying that line must go up. Ironically, that very action is causing whatever the remaining to go down. So that's there. And that's up to the GoPro, so long-term viability, that's up to you. But DJI Action 5 Pro, this puppy, it's actually far more pleasant for more people, I feel like that, in terms of hardware. And hey, what if I want to buy Insta360? What will be you gaining? Well, assuming that you need that flip-up screen, that is a very good valid reason. If you do not, there's one ace up its sleeve, that is the AI application that is running on your phone. The app ecosystem compared to DJI versus Insta360, Insta360 is far more refined. You're gonna have far pleasant time. You're gonna have fun, basically. So if you're like, hey, you know what, I want to tinker with it, I would recommend Insta360. If you're like, hey, I just want a camera that just works good, for more people, I would say Action 5 Pro. And if you're like, hey, I'm like, I do not do low light for photo, because again, it's night and day difference. It's no longer like, a little bit here. No, it's like black and white, day and night difference. That's how big difference is between the sensor size of this puppy and these two puppies. So flat out, if you're buying this, you're only buying this for the look and feel. There is nothing more than that. And again, you will like image stabilization, all that, all those are reaching that point where it's like, and again, the moment sun goes down, the moment little, or even indoor, you're like, yep. So Let me be very clear. If you buy this, you are buying the GoPro look. If you are happy with it, having fun with it, go YOLO. If you want a camera that you're like, you know what, I want something latest that actually looks good, is actually competent, this puppy is good. And if you're like, hey, I want that flip up screen, whatever reason, you enjoy that, have fun with this, and it does have good AI assistance and all that extra app system that will, allow you to have fun. However, I have already made a dedicated video of resolution hype. Let that be very clear. The 8K here, be mindful of that. That's not true 8K. It's still 180 megabits per second. Be mindful, my DSLR, which is only recording in full HD, is recording more than that. So you will not get that, whoa. Compression have become a very good nowadays. Again, H.265 is really good compression, and the chips are actually able to crunch far more to get really good thing, but it's not cinematic. So do not expect like, oh, 8K cinematics. No, do not buy it for, oh, it has 8K quality. It's just a little bit sharper. Like, again, inherently the lens itself is the weak link. On top of that, having 180 megabits per second, that's not good enough. Again, 180 megabytes per second, now you're talking about cinema level. So that's just like exponentially compressed. So there are alternatives. So this is a good system. So if you are like GoPro, a fan, have fun. If you are like, hey, I want something that is like a camera-wise a really good system and OLED display, you can have fun. Like, hey, I want something that flips out and has good fun effects on your smartphone apps. Have fun with this. We have really good options nowadays. So this was my presentation on basically Insta360 X Ace Pro 2. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike. Press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.